My name is Kimberly, and I am pleased to welcome back to the program Stephen Bassett. Stephen is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group. He also headed up the citizen hearing on ET disclosure April 29th through May 3rd of 2013. And we're going to talk about his current efforts, which are about the Congressional Hearing Initiative. Websites that you're going to want to have for follow-up are citizenhearing.org or paradigmresearchgroup.org. Stephen, welcome back to Common Ground. How are you?
It's great to be with you, Kimberly.
Thank you. Well, actually, we have not spoken since before the citizens hearing that took place in 2013. I think what we need to do first is you need to quickly tell people who are listening right now, what was the citizens hearing on disclosure?
Yes, this was a project of Paradigm Research Group that was done from April 29 to May 3 of 2013. It's part of PRG's strategy to end what we call a truth embargo on the extraterrestrial issue by the U.S. government, a policy instituted since the late 1940s, that the acknowledgement of this reality, this ET presence, will be withheld from the American people for national security reasons, and that the efforts by the public to understand, research, and even advocate would be undermined as well through fairly sophisticated programs of misinformation, disinformation, ridicule, intimidation, and so forth. It ultimately will be a huge embarrassment on America's legacy, though the national security basis for this policy in the 40s and 50s is not hard to justify.
Mm-hmm.
But then the United States has got a whole lot of black marks it's going to have to answer for to history, and that's just the way it is. This policy has to end, and PRG is dedicated to bringing it to an end, and that end would result with what we call the disclosure event. This would be the moment in which the President of the United States goes before the American people and, in fact, ends this truth embargo by acknowledging the extraterrestrial presence. The most important project seeking this goal by PRG was, in fact, the citizen hearing on disclosure last year. It was part of a three-move strategy designed to end the truth embargo by February. The first move in this occurred in 2011. On September the 22nd, the Paradigm Research Group was able to get from the White House, for the first time in history, a written statement on the extraterrestrial issue. It was issued on the White House website on October the 4th, where it still remains. In the We the People section, you can easily get to those links by going to disclosurepetition.org, disclosurepetition.org. Look for the first disclosure petition. You'll see the links to the White House website where you can read the original petition that got this statement as well as the statement itself. This statement was historical. The White House stated in writing for the first time there is no evidence whatsoever for life outside the planet, for an extraterrestrial presence engaging the planet, and no evidence that the government is hiding anything. This statement is profound in that, one, it's completely false. It's indefensibly false, two, and three, it is the first time in history that the White House has actually put its position in writing. This may have been a deliberate mistake, an intended gift from the White House to the advocacy movement, given that they could have written the usual 5 or 6 paragraphs of word salad, which would have been of no value to me. In other words, I couldn't attack it. It's mush. But they didn't. They gave a hard rock position that is easily attackable, and which we did for the next year in various ways. But the next move was, in fact, a citizen hearing on disclosure. What happened there was unprecedented. It had never happened before.
Yeah, I'm going to interject. I watched most of it, and it was fabulous, so continue.
I've been in this field for 18 years. I've never seen a response to anything related to the ET issue or the disclosure process like this. And I'm a little upset that it was taken 16 months to make the second move, but yet the timing may prove to be appropriate. What PRG did was spend over $700,000 to bring 42 witnesses, 18 researchers, and 24 what we call military agency political witnesses of rank and station to the National Press Club which is right next to the White House and about 10 blocks from the Capitol. We rented the ballroom for an entire week, and these 42 witnesses testified in 20 sessions, each session containing 2 panels, over 5 days for 30 hours, to a committee. It was essentially a mock congressional hearing. The committee was made up of 6 former members of Congress with 80 years of tenure, 5 former representatives and 1 senator. 2 of the representatives, Lynn Woolsey and Roscoe Bartlett, who is a scientist, by the way, had just retired from the House the previous January with 20 years each. And these 6 former members of Congress sat in hearing mode, taking the testimony from these witnesses, which was made under citizen oath. Their verbal, verbal statements, as well as written statements, as well as some documentation, and asked them questions for 5 solid days. It is the most concentrated amount of evidence and witnesses ever brought together at one time in one place. And it was brought together in the ballroom of the National Press Club and delivered to former members of Congress, and the entire thing was filmed, all 30 hours, as well as webcast to the world. Got reasonable coverage, though most of the coverage that we were anticipating was lost because 2 idiots blew up the Boston Marathon, I think about 14 days before the event, and the media was simply gone. We understand that.
I'm sorry, 4 days before what event?
About 14 days before the citizen hearing is when the Boston Marathon was blown up by 2 idiot Croats.
That's interesting. I'm not making that connection being here in Boston, but okay. All right.
Well, the connection is this.
Yeah.
14 days before the citizen hearing is when the media was going to be making their decisions. Cover the citizen hearing, don't cover the citizen hearing, hold interviews, and so forth. And our publicists have been working in extensively, and so when this tragedy happened in Boston, the media was gone. You couldn't get an interview, you couldn't get anything. This was a huge, huge, massive story. And so we lost a great deal of media attention. It's an unfortunate thing for us, a tragedy for Boston. It's just the way it is. That's life. But we still got pretty good attention, by and large, and a lot of coverage. And so this event was completed on May the 3rd. Now, that was prelude to the third maneuver, which is going on right now. And what is happening is this. We launched on November the 5th a Congressional hearing initiative, which is the point of all of this, pursuing actual hearings on Capitol Hill for the witnesses that are available to testify, which as of now is in the hundreds, though probably no more than 25 to 30 would be sufficient to achieve what we need to achieve. And this is the most comprehensive effort ever to get hearings on this subject in history. The last time the Congress held a hearing on the extraterrestrial presence, which is now pretty much worldwide understood to be real, was 1968, which is as strong a testimony as you would want to how the United States Congress has become irrelevant to the affairs of the American people, other than taking us into war and killing us, and that's about all they can do. Mm-hmm. The reason there have been no hearings since 68, and there have been many attempts to get them, they've all been blocked, squashed, sidetracked, whatever you want to call. I'm aware of 2 that were blocked. There are 4 others that, I'm aware of the details of 2 of these efforts, and then there are a number of other efforts that were done. I don't know the details, but they never happened. And the reason for that is that there are the people in the United States government, mostly the intelligence and military complex, who deal with this issue, that have direct hands-on with this issue, are fully aware that if hearings were held for the kinds of witnesses ready to testify now, it would be the end of the truth embargo. And so they have worked to not let that happen. But they've never seen an effort like this. And I think they're kind of resigned to possibly it happening anyway. So what happened on November the 5th is that PRG shipped a full record, video record, of the citizen hearing on disclosure to every congressional office.
All 30 hours?
All 30 hours.
Okay.
It's a 10 DVD set.
Yep.
This is there's 3 offices that are vacant right now, but it's 538 offices. That represents 5,380 DVDs that are on their way now. They actually won't start arriving until around the 15th. And this shipment of this record is being accompanied by what we call a social media campaign. And by that, I mean that I'm doing extensive media. I've already done, I think, 10 hours. I've got 10 hours booked. I'll probably do 100 hours of media interviews between now and the end of November. But starting right away, through press releases and mail lists and so forth, we are getting people to conduct what is called a tweet storm. And in its fullest context, what a tweet storm is this, is that people with Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts can go to a website, factsonwashington.org, that's F-A-X, factsonwashington.org, which is the hub for this social media campaign, and easily find there the links that will allow them to get to the Twitter account and the Facebook, or the Twitter information and the Facebook pages for about two-thirds of the House and the Senate of the United States, as well as the email page for all of the House and the Senate. And people are already doing this. They are sending them tweets, they are Facebook posting, and they're sending emails through the email forms following the instructions on factsonwashington.org. Namely, all tweets should have the hashtag disclosure. You want them to open the DVDs, let them know they're coming, and they need to be opened and reviewed. You want them to meet with me, the registered lobbyist for PRG on this subject, and they want hearings for these witnesses on this subject. And by raining thousands of these tweets and emails and Facebook posts and messages, all of which are followed, there's a staff person assigned to watch all of this in every one of these offices, of that you can be assured. By getting thousands coming through, it absolutely gets their attention. One or two is irrelevant. It just goes right by. But thousands, no. They will pay attention, and they will open that box. And once they open that box, we've pretty much got them. And that is the game plan. So the social media campaign is underway. It'll continue all through November. It will continue to grow. And when I last checked hashtag analytics, we were running around 2,000 tweets an hour with hashtag disclosure. Now, that doesn't count the tweets that people are sending where they forget to put the hashtag in. So they're already getting a pretty good amount of rain on Capitol Hill. Now, what happens next is I'll be going to Washington to begin a 3-month personal engagement and start knocking on doors. Hopefully by then, these DVDs will have been looked at to some degree or another by members of the staff, and I will start meeting with staffers of certain of the members. Now, we're only targeting those members that sit on the appropriate committees. So, for example, if you are a representative and you're sitting on the House Select Intelligence Committee and the House Committee on Space Science and Technology, you are a key candidate, and I'll be knocking on your door. This also will be accompanied by a mainstream media campaign. There's already been a press release out. There'll be more. If we can raise about $20,000 from a wise and determined supporter, then we will hire our publicist who has worked other projects for us, one of the top independents in Washington, to drive the mainstream media campaign throughout all of November, December, and January. And we're going to be doing this in November and December while the members are home. The Congress doesn't work very much, but they do have one lame duck session, I think about 14 days total between now and the end of the year, between November, the election, and the end of the year. So mostly they're going to be home, which means that their staffers are sitting in Washington with not much to do, and that's why we're going to be working with them. And then on January the 3rd, when the new Congress comes back to take session, hopefully enough groundwork has been laid that I can start getting meetings with some of the members and or their chiefs of staff to discuss, again, why they need to approach their committee chairs and get clearance to and agree to hold the hearings for the witnesses that are ready to come to Washington. Those meetings will take place in January, and I think they could very well trigger disclosure or the announcement by the President sometime in February. That is the game plan. That is the scope of this. It is the most comprehensive effort ever in history to get the real hearings on this issue. And so far it's going according to schedule.
Well, like I said, I am extremely excited about this, and I'm really happy to be a participant in this. I'm talking with Stephen Bassett, Executive Director of the Paradigm Research Group. And there are tons of websites, but I think the best one to go to is citizenshearing.org to start with, because that's where anyone who is interested, you've put together the DVD with 10.5 hours of the hearings from last year in 2000.
No, the DVD put together is 30. It's all 30 hours.
Oh, okay. Well, what about online then? You tell me the citizenshearing.org. You can.
Okay, it's singular, by the way. It's citizen, not no S. Citizenhearing.org. I think we still have the citizenshearing.org plural as a forward, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
So many domains. That is where you find information about the citizen hearing of 2013, and there are people donated to the editing campaign, and they are due eventually the DVD set, among other things, for that campaign, which has been delayed almost 16 months. So they will get that, and that will be hopefully later this year. But first, the DVDs, the Congressional set, which is not commercial quality, has been shipped off as part of the advocacy movement. Commercial quality will eventually be available. The donors will get their sets, as well as whatever else that they're owed due to their contributions. But that's the site for the hearing. Now, the main site for Paradigm Research Group is, as always, paradigmresearchgroup.org. And the top page is where people get directed to where they got to go in order to be part of this historic effort. And that page is the key to the social media, and that is the FAX, F-A-X, on Washington.org page. These are the three sites, faxonwashington.org, paradigmresearchgroup.org, and citizenhearing.org, that are central to this three-maneuver process underway, designed to get, again, congressional hearings and end the truth embargo on this issue.
Good. And just for the record, yes, citizens or citizenhearing.org get you there.
Oh, so both of them are working.
Yes.
All right, good. Thanks for letting me know that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just checked it out. The Congressional Hearing Initiative that you are in full force on, why don't you take this moment, you've kind of touched on it, but let's be a little more specific of what someone listening right now can do to help this initiative.
Again, what's on their way to Congress right now on every office. By the way, those 538 offices have about 10,000 staffers working for them. Every one of them has a computer, most of which have DVD players. So as you can see, the potential for sort of a viral engagement of the issue by these staffers who have lunch with each other, who communicate all the time with each other, is substantial. So if we get that going, those DVDs are going to be the talk of the Hill.
Yeah.
and that's the game plan. So and then the DVDs are also accompanied by a letter signed by, I think, 40 of the citizen hearing witnesses. That letter is including astronaut Edgar Mitchell and the former Defense Minister of Canada, Paul Hellyer, et cetera, et cetera. That letter is, again, calling on the Congress to support hearings immediately for this issue, meet with me, and certainly open and review the DVD material from the citizen hearing. All right. Now, critical to the success is the social media campaign. So everybody that is interested and wants to actually help bring about what will be the most profound event in human history, they don't have much to do. Mm-hmm. They go to faxonwashington.org. There they will find the links easily that will take them to where they need to go in order to find the Facebook icons and the Twitter icons for about two-thirds of the House and Senate members. They can then click on that and go tweet them. Not once, but every couple of days. Tweet them again. Don't just tweet your representative or your two senators. Tweet 50 of them. Tweet all you want. And then wait 2 days and do it again. They can't keep track of who's doing what. All they see are tweets raining down on them. Now, in terms of the email, it's a little different. Congress goes to some lengths to try to minimize the amount of contact that they have with the people. So with respect to Congress, they've done away virtually with email addresses. You don't use those anymore. You have a form page. In the House of Representatives, the form page is designed that only constituents, in other words, if you're in the district, you can email them. If you're not, you can't. I find that amusing. In the Senate, though, anybody in the United States can email them through their form page, but people outside the country, if they can't provide a American address with an American zip code, they can't get an email into them. So they're a little restricted there. However, there's no restrictions on the Facebook postings and the Twitters,
right?
Which is why that's central to this and why we call it a tweet storm. So we're inviting people to hit them up with these tweets, Facebook posts and messages and emails throughout all November, as many as they want, as often as they want, and rain down on them these messages, which are, of course, on that website. We want you to know those DVDs are coming. with the record of the citizen hearing, that you need to look at them. You need to meet with Stephen Bassett, the registered lobbyist, and you need to hold hearings on this subject. Very basic. We give them a number of examples of wording, but we encourage them to use their own, and then make sure they hashtag any tweets that they do with hashtag disclosure. So that is how anybody in the world, frankly,
yes.
can put some pressure on our United States Congress to do the right thing for a change, do something profound. Now, it gets a little more complicated here, but let me give you the punchline. All right, I'm very open about this, by the way. I'm not trying to play the hidden ball trick on the U.S. Congress or the president. I tell them exactly what we're going to do, and that is this: the target of this campaign from the beginning is, in fact, not the Congress. It is the political media. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean this, that for the last 67 years, the American press have been on a chain, on a leash, with respect to the ET issue. That leash was put on them back in the 1950s when the truth embargo was built and developed and pursued with vigor and with support by the government, by the press, and so forth, because in that time we were facing a potential nuclear world war with the Soviet Union that would have ended civilization. And, of course, the government had ET craft, ET bodies. It didn't know what the ultimate agenda of these extraterrestrials were. It didn't know what the weapon capability of this technology was. They had huge unknowns, and they felt it was in the national interest to obviously keep this under wraps to the extent that they could. I'm not going to argue with that decision. I wasn't there, but I can see why they made it. And the press went along with it. What they didn't know was that there wouldn't be a World War III to end all of our pain, but rather there would be a Cold War that would spend all of our money, and it would last 44 years. And by the time the Cold War was over in 1991, the truth embargo was virtually institutionalized, meaning it just simply was. It was what you did. That's the way it was. You didn't need to send out emails reminding reporters and editors, don't touch this issue in a serious way. They just didn't. So since 1991, we've been in a transition process on many levels that is clearly moving us closer to disclosure. And the media, and political media and all the media, have written thousands of articles about this subject. I know because I've read them and I've archived them on my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org. And that's only a fraction of all that's been done. But they are on a leash. In other words, they can only go to the end of that leash, and that's as far as they can go. And that means they can scribe it, they can write it, but they can't investigate it, and they can't ask questions. Now, the job of PRG is to break that leash. And once it's broken, we have another concept. You heard about the tweet storm. Well, there's another concept that's very important in American life. It's called a media feeding frenzy. A media feeding frenzy is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. You don't want to get in front of one. You'll be eaten alive. If you don't believe that, ask Bill Clinton. So how do we create this media storm? It's simple. If things go properly, in January, political media in Washington learn through their channels that, in fact, a committee on the Hill is going to agree to, or has agreed, to bring the witnesses that are now available up to the Hill to testify to the ET issues, events, and evidence under the penalty, the risk of federal perjury charges. That leash will be broken, and the media will bite down. And when they do, it's over. Now, I speak to the president through the media all the time. I don't get invited to the White House, and I don't bother to send letters. So I just talk to him through the media. And I'm probably now approaching 1,300 interviews on this subject. I don't know how many hours. It's a huge number. When I do, I talk to the president, because one of the wonders of the new media, which is not as conglomerated as some people think, is that in many cases, in fact, virtually about 90% of all alternative radio interviews on the internet are archived. So I can do two minutes on CNN and it disappears into the void. I can do 3 hours on an internet radio show. It becomes a link the next day or a week later, and that link, in many cases, stays up indefinitely. It becomes a Google search link. And so this is how you speak to the government. And the message that I'm sending to President Obama and his advisors, bless their pointy little heads, is this: you do not want to wait for that media feeding frenzy to begin. You do not want to go in front of the American people and say, I did not have want to do that. In fact, the moment you realize that the congressional hearings are perhaps in the works, you need to proactively end finally this standoff. And the way that he has to do it under the current circumstances is to do something that has now become difficult to do in Washington, but nevertheless it's not impossible. He needs to cut a deal. It's called making a deal. And so the advice to the president is this: before that feeding frenzy begins, you need to send a representative to the Pentagon, and that representative will meet with their representative in a super-secret cafeteria 10 floors underneath, undoubtedly floor 1, and you will cut a deal. The president will get from the Pentagon what he needs to go before the American people and confirm the extraterrestrial presence without making a fool of himself. The Pentagon will get from the president what they feel is necessary, certain assertions, promises, whatever, that will assure them that the event in the post-disclosure period that will follow will be handled in ways that will be appropriate for national security. And when the two representatives are comfortable with each other, they will disclose. They will hold the disclosure event and announce the ET presence. And they won't wait for it either. It's not the kind of thing you sit on, not in Washington. And we'll be done with this. That's the advice that I'm giving him. And any advisor that tells him that they can continue to sit on this truth embargo much longer is a fool and needs to go find some other job somewhere else, as far away from the White House as they can get. But there's another message that the president needs to hear, and this is even more important to the national interest of the United States. And that is simply this, that the evidence is clear, going back to 2000, that there are a number of heads of state in the world right now capable of announcing the ET presence tomorrow if they so desire. And our allies are breaking ranks on this issue. The evidence is clear in this regard. Since 2004, tens upon tens of thousands of documents have been released proactively by about 15 different countries to the Internet, where they've been scoffed up and downloaded hundreds of millions of times around the world, starting with France in 2004, then followed by 7 releases by the UK since 2005, and followed by releases by Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Sweden, Norway, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina. Why are they doing that? Well, they're not prepared to end the truth embargo, but they're more than happy to put pressure on the United States to do it. So what happens when they finally lose patience and one of those heads of state says enough is enough and goes before their people and announces this ET presence? Because what the advisors in the astute advisors to President Obama need to understand, if they don't already know this, is that every nation in the world that has an air force, which is virtually all of the in many cases, a defensive air force, every nation in the world has an air force is fully aware of the ET presence. Why? Because for most or all of the last 67 years, they have been sending up their planes to intercept intrusions into their airspace by these craft. And when they do that, in order to avoid undue consequences from a mishap, they film it. They're called gun cameras. And why they're called gun cameras is because one of the gun slots in the plane is replaced with a camera, and it films what the plane is seeing. And you do that in case you go up and accidentally shoot down a French airliner, right? And you can show what happened and whatever, and maybe it'll exonerate you, but you better have a record of this intercept because national wars get started over things like this. And so they have been sending up planes, all of these nations, and they've been encountering these craft, and they've been chasing them, and they've got gun camera footage of disc maneuvering around them at will and then flying off at several thousand miles an hour. And then that footage, when these planes return, is immediately pulled from these planes and archived in the deepest realms of that country's facilities, never to be seen. Not a single foot of archived gun camera footage from chase planes since this began has ever seen the light of day, nor has been able to be achieved through Freedom of Information requests. Why? Because obviously any evidence like that would end the truth embargo. And so all of these nations know at one level or another, including Russia and including China. And the two leading candidates to take this brass ring is Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, who, by the way, just had a meeting just shortly a while ago where they made even bigger deals with each other as they move towards taking over the United States' position as the most important world power.
Right.
in case anybody's paying attention. And so my advice to the president, more importantly to his advisors, is this. Do you want to be the president of the United States that wakes up on a Saturday morning, or let's make it Wednesday morning, and to be told that Vladimir Putin just announced to the Russian people that there is an extraterrestrial presence, showed some fine gun camera footage to prove it, and now you've got to go in front of the American people in the East Wing of the White House and explain to them that you have to now tell them that truth because the president of Russia has already pulled the cat out of the bag. You don't want to be that president that has to do that. And any advisor in the White House that tells the president that don't worry, the CIA has Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping under their thumb is either an idiot or a spy and should either be, imprisoned or thrown over the White House fence. If that were to happen, the geopolitical consequences of the United States would be profound. And here's why. The United States has led this truth embargo for 67 years. All of its allies have gone along with it. The Soviet Union and Communist China went along with it because they had no interest in introducing that kind of profound information into what were clearly ideological control states.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't going to do it. Of course, that is changing since 1992. The Soviet Union is now Russia and a bunch of republics. Russia's gone democratic and capitalist, and Communist China is been reforming their economics and is in a much different position. Still an ideological control state, but not nearly at the risk that it was, say, in 1970 to making an announcement like that. And so the leader of a nation that goes first and ends this truth embargo will achieve a priceless geopolitical legacy for himself, his party, and his nation. If Russia goes first, Russia will get all of the credit for being the great teller of truth, the paradigm-shifting nation that brought the world into the post-disclosure era. And the United States, which has maintained this truth embargo, originated this truth embargo, will get all of the negatives from that program and none of the positives from being the nation that ended it. That is a geopolitical catastrophe. Now, I hope that the advisors in the White House are smart enough to see this, but I have serious questions about that because this has been probably, when you factor in the actions of the White House and the Congress, one of the stupidest, most ridiculous, absurd 6-year periods in the history of the country. And that is following the Bush administration, which set all-time records. And so we're in deep, deep trouble. And somebody has got to do something that makes sense. Somebody is going to have to demonstrate some courage. Somebody is going to have to look at history. Somebody has got to turn this around for the United States because we're going down very, very fast.
Yeah.
And you won't find that on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News because these three organizations, which are supposedly the flagships of cable news in this country, are a joke and a complete waste of time. So we got serious, serious trouble in terms of the American people understanding this reality, but that extends right into the advisors to the president and to the Congress. So here they have a chance to make a huge difference, to achieve that political legacy, get us out of the truth embargo, get the credit for that while they have to deal with the problems and the public relations issues of having conducted this lie for 67 years. And they can do it by February. And that's what's at stake. Well, actually, that's just the beginning of what's at stake. I spend hours lecturing on what's really at stake, which is far greater than what I've just described. That's how big this issue is.
It's huge, and I love it, and I've been waiting for this for a very, very, very long time. Again, Stephen Bassett, Executive Director of Paradigm Research Group, is here with me, and I like this one. I think it's the easiest to remember, citizenhearing.org or factsonwashington.org or paradigmresearchgroup.org.
Yeah, look, if you want to be up to speed in the 21st century, you'd better learn. I'm speaking to your audience now. Better learn how to spell paradigm.
Right. That's a good word. That's a good word. All right, Steve, unfortunately, we only have we have a few minutes, so I have a couple questions that I want you to give me some quick answers to. Going back to what you were talking about as far as Obama being the one who would be a great person to speak to it, why is Putin not doing it then? Why wouldn't he want to have that glory? I'm curious about that.
Very good question. We do not know why Putin or Xi Jinping have not made this move. It would fit directly into their aspirations that China or Russia be elevated substantially on the world stage. They want to be world powers. They want to surpass the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They are tired of the United States being, quote, the de facto world power, but they haven't done it. Now, there are very complex relationships, obviously, going on here
Right.
in this world. I could throw India in, but it's really not the player that people think it is. The three players are China, Russia, and the United States right now. And they have very complex relationships. China is holding up $1 trillion, $2 trillion of our paper, which could be dramatically diminished if disclosure takes place. The United States is wholly dependent upon China's cheap underwear. I mean, without that, we can't even function. That was a joke, by the way. Russia, of course, has huge resources in the fossil fuel area, which would be impacted by disclosure because there's alternative energy that will probably emerge post-disclosure on this. These are complex questions, and yet the legacy that would go to Putin or Xi Jinping is so huge,
Right.
particularly Putin, that I'm surprised that he hasn't done this already. There's undoubtedly issues there in the background that I'm not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that comes to mind that might explain Putin's procrastination on this is this, and this is speculation. Well, it's not all speculation, but it's partially speculation. It's possible that the U.S., because it has had the most crash vehicles in its possession and huge monies and underground facilities to research, re-engineer, and study this technology, it's possible the U.S. is much further along in the development of both the anti-gravitic propulsion systems, the energy systems, and any other tech that they might have pulled from these craft than China or Russia.
Okay.
Or any other nation. And as a result, the heads of that nation are worried that if they were to preempt the United States on disclosure, their access to that technology post-disclosure could be severely limited. That's one possibility, but it's just speculation. I really don't know.
Okay.
But not too long ago, this was about, I think, a year and a half ago, and it's easy to find on YouTube for your listeners. At that time, President Medvedev was giving an interview, and at the end of the interview, somehow the ET question came up. Ostensibly, he thought the cameras and the microphones were turned off, but they were not, or the microphone was not. And he started talking about the fact that the president is given a file when they come into office, and that file includes lots of significant issues, including the extraterrestrial presence. And that for people that and I guess he's telling the reporter, if you want to look into this, check out the movie Men in Black. So this happens, and it gets over to the U.S. The ET people jump on it extensively. The debunkers and the skeptics say, no, this was a joke. He was, Men in Black is a comedy series. Well, no. The movie he was referring to was, in fact, a documentary made by Russians called Men in Black. He wasn't joking. There was no laughing going on. And I'm deeply suspicious, given we're talking about Russia now, that the president of Russia wasn't aware that microphone was still on or didn't take measures to turn it off if he's going to talk about that. And so we think that off-microphone, quote-unquote, remarks by Medvedev was, in fact, a signal to the U.S. that, we can do this.
Okay.
So what are you waiting for? I mean, that's just one little point to make. And if you go on YouTube and do a YouTube search on Medvedev UFO, you can easily find the recording of that, and people can listen to it. I can give you other examples of things like this. Let me tell you.
Well, you know what? We don't have much time, so
I'm sorry.
I would love to hear more examples. But anybody can go to citizenhearing.org, and you can listen to the testimony for yourself, and that's just the beginning.
Excerpts, yes.
So we only have a few minutes left, and this is, I kind of wanted to save the best for last.
Okay.
Okay, after disclosure, Stephen, what is the world going to look like? I love this part.
Tens of thousands of books will be written about the post-disclosure world. I've got a couple of minutes. I can only say that the moment those words come out of the president's mouth or Putin's mouth, then we are in the post-disclosure world. Immediately, one of the things you expect to see happen is the media will change sides. They will simply move from one dugout to the other dugout. I mean, they will come over to our side because no media, no paper, no television network is going to stand with the government once the announcement is. Their job is to break news, get scoops, win Pulitzer Prizes, get eyeballs, ratings, and money. And this is the biggest story of all time. And the idea that they're going to say, well, look, we probably don't want to ask any questions now. No. So where basically you've got all the American government facing off against the entire media structure and 360 million people who are basically saying, we want everything you've got immediately. And the government will say, well, you can only have this much and you have to wait. And a tug of war will go on, a massive tug of war will go on, in which the American people and the media and the government are going back and forth and back and forth. And out of that will come information. It will come out in various forms. It will come out at various times, but it will come out a hell of a lot faster than the government would like. And we'll start to get the picture, the rest of the picture, at least that the government knows, to go with the massive research that's been done by citizens since 1947 and start to really understand what's going on. And we will engage this issue with worldwide intensity for a year or two. And I have a hunch that after we've done that and are pretty much up to speed, open contact with these extraterrestrials will occur, and then we'll be in the post-open contact world, because I can assure you there's plenty of contact going on between
already. Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh yeah, and so that's just, in a few words, that's what's going on. And I have advice to people: if you have health issues, fix them. If you're not taking care of yourself, change course, and go out and buy the best, the biggest TV, ultra high def TV you can find, because you're going to be witness to the greatest show in history. Have your computer ready, have your cable purchased, and get ready to sit and watch or participate. There'll be plenty of opportunity to participate in the post-disclosure world, but you live 1,000 lifetimes. You'll never see anything what will start to take place once that announcement is made. I can't wait. I know ETs are here, so the announcement doesn't mean much to me, but what happens after that, I've been waiting for and living for the last 18 years.
Right. Like I said, I'm just so excited about this congressional hearing initiative, Stephen, and all of your years of hard work and all of those that are with you and supporting you on this, and bring it on.
Well, I have to ask you a question, Kimberly.
Sure.
Why are you so excited? Why is this such a big thing for you?
Okay. Because I know the ramifications, particularly of the suppressed technology that exists, that our tax dollars have paid for since 1947 or before, and how just the concept of free energy, which exists and has been suppressed, that will change the world. And
we didn't get into that, but you're right. This is a whole other show. Have you ever had a sighting of any significance?
No, but I have certainly talked to many, many who've had many experiences.
Same here.
Yeah.
I've talked to scores and scores of people, and I can tell you they are very powerfully believable, whereas I have yet to run into a politician in person that didn't lie from the moment I met him.
Yeah.
So I believe the testimony of these witnesses. I believe the testimony of the contactees. I do not believe our politicians and media, but I'm hoping that they will turn that around and show me what they got.
Well, listen, I expect that we will be following up on this shortly. And because this is so much fun, and I am feeling that this is the move, finally. But I thought it was going to happen sooner than now.
So did I.
So, I mean, especially when I was just kind of looking up statistics, and there are various ones that more than 50%, 60%, whatever, of people, I guess these were in America, think that it's very likely that there are extraterrestrials and whatnot. But like I said, I've just spoken to so many who've had their own personal experiences that are still alive, the citizens hearing, et cetera, et cetera. How could you think any other way?
Well, you can think all you want, but nothing's going to happen in politics because of the truth embargo. Now, here's a little tip for your audience. One, go to YouTube, do a YouTube search on Bill Clinton, Jimmy Kimmel UFO, and watch the 5-minute segment from April the 2nd of this year where Kimmel asked Clinton about extraterrestrials.
Okay.
2, know that in the 30-hour testimony, a record that has been on its way to Congress right now, and will start arriving in 5, 6, 7 days, is an entire section on the Rockefeller Initiative and the Clintons. And so as this moves forward, I invite your audience to pay very close attention to anything that comes out of the mouth of President Bill Clinton and President wannabe Hillary Clinton, and or their key advisor, John Podesta. Watch it very, very carefully, because they are in a real bind. And that is why Clinton turned up on the Kimmel Show on April the 2nd, because at the time, the understanding in the public was, as I had put out there, that these DVDs were going to be shipped on March the 31st. Now, it didn't happen for internal reasons, but they didn't know that, and that's why Clinton turned up on the Kimmel Show 30 hours after I announced that they weren't going to go, but he wouldn't have known that. He would have thought those DVDs were on their way. The Rockefeller Initiative may be the linchpin issue that finally brings this truth embargo down, and it is a huge problem for the Clintons, who have massive aspirations. So watch carefully what they do and say, and enjoy.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Certainly an exciting time to be alive. Please, please do follow up on this and go to citizenhearing.org or paradigmresearchgroup.org. Again, a big thank you to Stephen Bassett, the Executive Director of Paradigm Research Group. My name is Kimberly, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for contacting your Congress people. Thank you for being you. Much love, always, in all ways. Over and out.